It is not my proudest moment, but I am humbled to be joined by Locked On Cardinals co-host Alex Clancy and longtime radio veteran here in the Valley as well. How are you doing tonight?
Good, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Cardinals, I'm just going to get the question out of the way. Pretenders or real-life contenders?
I mean, they're contenders, man. You know, it took me a little while to drink the Cliff Kingsbury Kool-Aid. It took about 35 games of him coaching, you know?
Hang on, I was told there'd be no math here, so that's about 3 games ago.
Yeah, week 3 into this season where it's just like, I think that Kyler bails him out of everything. And I think the play calling's bad, and I think that, you know, when games get close, he doesn't know what to do, and we saw that last year a lot. But he's really kind of turned a corner. The San Francisco game, even though it was against the weakest opponent that they played, I would say even over Jacksonville, they were the weakest opponent because that offense was putrid. He's shown that he belongs here, and the team's really rounding out into shape with the addition of all the 1-year offseason acquisitions and the 2-year deal with J.J. Watt. I mean, Rodney Hudson, A.J. Green. Like, this is what adult football teams do in the offseason. They bring in vets that can perform.
Free agency isn't supposed to be how you build your team. It's how you supplement the core of your roster. And, you know, the most notable one ever would be probably Reggie White in the game of football, unless you count Peyton Manning going to Denver.
Right.
You know, there are some newer ones. But 10 years ago when I was getting started at this whole game, I still had the one and only, the Bears have never had a good quarterback. Oh, wait, the Bears still don't have a great quarterback.
Yeah.
So looking around the NFC, I'm amazed that it's worked. I'm going to say, just because kind of an outsider looking in, and I've lived here for 20 years in the Valley of the Sun, so some allegiances die hard, and especially hard for the Cleveland Browns when you go through an 0-16, 1-15, 0-16, and they bring that guy back. So I dealt with Hugh Jackson. I'm glad that the Browns seem to have righted the ship. Kevin Stefanski seems like he's the right guy. They've made the moves to bring in, they traded for Landry. Some of these are John Dorsey moves. Some of these are Andrew Berry moves. But what we've wanted more than anything in Cleveland is some stability at the quarterback position, at the head coach. And, that probably is a reflection of the GM as well. And, how long has Steve Keim been with the Cardinals now?
Long time. I mean, he grew up with the Cardinals. I mean, it's upwards of 15, 17 years. He's been the GM since 2013, I believe, and DJ Humphries was the first-round pick that he signed to a second deal that he drafted. So, I mean, it's been, you said you build through the draft. You said inherently, implicitly, that's what you do, and the Cardinals haven't been able to do that over Steve Keim's tenure, but what we've seen is during the offseason, he's been able to trade for players, he's been able to sign players. What he did with DeAndre Hopkins was highway robbery, even though that was technically an owner-to-owner move that the GMs got credit for and vilified for with Bill O'Brien. But I believe Bill O'Brien at one point compared DeAndre Hopkins to Aaron Hernandez in a conversation, so that was kind of the end of that behind closed doors. What the Cardinals have done stability-wise, as you mentioned with the Browns, is every young player has a veteran counterpart now. Kyler Murray has Colt McCoy. Very important. All the young rookies have A.J. Green and DeAndre Hopkins. Jordan Hicks with Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons, even though their skill sets are a little bit different. Malcolm Butler was supposed to be that guy in the cornerback room. And then J.J. Watt for the young pass rushers. I guess you can throw Isaiah Simmons in there. And then Rodney Hudson for the whole young offensive line. Every young player has a veteran counterpart to be kind of the big brother and kind of lead them through the NFL season, practice, and everything. So it's working in synchronicity is what it's working as.
Since you brought up Isaiah Simmons, that linebacking core, I heard you on the Locked On Cardinals podcast talking about how he's just a perfect complement for Hicks, and you've got this specimen of a man from Tulsa, Oklahoma, playing, he's a power forward in an outside linebacker skin.
Yeah, he was a surprise. 6'4", as Boa likes to say, a cheeseburger short of 270, and he is great in coverage. He's not necessarily the fastest guy, but he's definitely quick for his size. What we're seeing is he's not ready yet, which is fine. We saw last year that Isaiah Simmons wasn't ready yet, but what we are seeing from Zaven Collins that we didn't see from Isaiah Simmons is he doesn't look lost out there. Isaiah Simmons looked lost as an NFL player last year. And this year you can see a huge jump in his ability and his acumen, his IQ on the field, which we're hoping to see from Zaven Collins slowly but surely. But another thing with Steve Keim is like anointing him the starter in May may not have been the best move. And we see that Jordan Hicks stayed. He didn't say, get me the hell out of here. He stayed, and he's now, he's rated highly at a sack and a half last week or 2 sacks. The dude's been an integral part. Without him, these young linebackers would not be as far along, even though it's taken Zaven Collins a little bit longer than people expected, as they would have been if he wouldn't have been here.
Would you say J.J. Watt is the prize free agent target in all of Cardinals history, at least since they've been in Arizona?
Yes, but, or yes and, it's more of the leadership shift. Patrick Peterson out, J.J. Watt in is just washing away all of 2018. Get me out of here. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I want to be the next Larry Fitzgerald. 2, I'm a cheater. For the first 6 weeks of 2019 with PEDs, leaving his team out to dry and then never really being the same, and then expecting this hometown to love him in the form of a paycheck. J.J. Watt, I said this when we saw Zaven Collins on Twitter rolling down the 15th fairway playing golf because he forgot breakfast for J.J. Watt. The J.J. Watt has already been more of a leader for the Cardinals than Patrick Peterson ever was. And it's true. Like, people equate great play with leadership. That's nonsense. It's nonsense. Ask Carmelo Anthony. It's absolute nonsense. What J.J. Watt has done has been one of the catalysts, same with Rodney Hudson, same with A.J. Green, to shift the culture from a losing with hints of winning to a big boy team that other teams need to fear. And through 6 weeks, that's exactly what we're seeing. So in all aspects, yes, not necessarily on the field by itself, but all in all, yeah.
Are you surprised or actually having your previous thoughts confirmed when you see how much better the secondary is a year after Patrick Williams?
I had no idea. I had no idea this was going to happen. They were supposed to be the weak link. Like, aside from Budda Baker, who's all pro now, I didn't think Byron Murphy could be a CB1. Anybody that said that, why? Why do you think that? Because he had a couple batted down passes against Dallas last year? He's shown that he's better, and he'd be a solid CB2 for sure. But what we've seen through 6 weeks is this growth that only people inside that locker room and inside that practice facility knows. And he is a bona fide CB1. And it's a magical thing to watch. And trading up for Marco Wilson, we had him on the podcast before training camp started. And the dude, all he said was, he's like, I'm a sponge. I'm ready to learn. Let's roll. So the fact that he's getting playing time, maybe a little bit early, but maximizing his playing time, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And the pass rush hasn't necessarily been the crutch that you'd want it to be for the secondary to thrive and be more opportunistic, because the quarterback gets rid of the ball so quickly. They're just balling out, and you got to give it to Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson over the top. I mean, they're one of the best 1-2 punchers in football.
I think the defense goes through the back end of the defense. You got to be able to cover the flat, and that's where Browns fans thought that David Njoku was going to have a field day, that they were going to be able to find Higgins underneath. And, with Chubb out, you don't throw the ball to Kareem Hunt as much, and Kareem Hunt had a pretty good game, as I recall. Baker Mayfield did not, and it's hard to say because I see Cardinals fans bitching on Twitter about how everything is about how the Browns lost and not about how the Cardinals won. And I remember being in that envious position with the Browns would beat the Ravens and they'd be like, oh, Joe Flacco's done, and then they never got to see Joe Flacco again, and they still haven't beat Lamar Jackson. Quick aside, just because they draw so many comparisons.
Well, it's the Browns' fault that the Cardinals are dealing with this, because when they traded for OBJ, that was supposed to be it. And then the national media got duped into thinking that they were going to be a 13-win team when they weren't. And now everybody's comparing them to that, even though they came back with a force the next year. And they've been pretty much in perpetuity since.
Yeah.
But that's what the comparison is like. Star-studded, big names coming in and just falling flat. And that was coach. I mean, it was Freddie Kitchens. Freddie Kitchens had no business being a head coach.
Well, that's John Dorsey's fault. And everybody gives credit to John Dorsey. He drafted Baker Mayfield. He traded for OBJ. He traded for Jarvis Landry, in fact. Yeah. And did a lot of things the year before. I don't want this to be too much of a Brown-centric podcast, but I do think that there's a lot of comparisons. There's been comparisons between the Indians, soon-to-be Guardians, and the Diamondbacks over the years. There's been Cavs-Suns comparison. In fact, if the Suns get that call or don't get Amari Stoudemire tossed from Game 5 of that series, it's probably the Suns that sweep the Cavaliers in 2007. Though Cavs fans tend to think that it might have gone a little bit differently, and I tend to disagree with that.
Yeah.
So I want to keep it on the Cardinals.
Yeah.
the acquisition of AJ Green, the second year of DeAndre Hopkins, as much as this town loves Larry Fitzgerald, the Cardinals, without Larry Fitzgerald, have found a way. It kind of reminds me of the Edgerrin James situation where he leaves the year before the Colts win the Super Bowl, and then he leaves the Cardinals the year before they go to the Super Bowl, and arguably probably should have won the game.
Yeah. You love Fitz. I've asked everybody that we've had on the podcast, I've asked my friends, I've texted my friends, is there a point where it becomes selfish of Larry Fitzgerald to not tell the fans that have beloved him for so long what he's going to do? And some people say yes, kind of murmuring. A lot of people say no, he can do whatever he wants. He's been paid very handsomely to be an Arizona Cardinal. Let's get that right. I mean, he's probably got paid double over the last 3 years what any other organization would have paid him. So I feel like in that respect specifically, he has a, quote, debt to pay to the fan base saying, hey, I'm not coming back. Regardless of if that was your plan or not, regardless of all of that, AJ Green, right when they signed AJ Green, I'm like, he's going to be a stud, 100%. Because 2 years ago before he got injured, or 3 years ago now, he's a stud. And Joe Burrow was a rookie. He liked the young receiver, just like Kyler did with Christian Kirk over Larry Fitzgerald, and he wasn't a part of the offense. They had Tyler Boyd. They were a lot faster than what AJ Green was able to account for on the outside. And then now, he's a perfect bookend of DeAndre Hopkins. It lets Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk do whatever the hell they want between the tackles in the slot and just wreak havoc on linebackers and safeties, while these two big stud wide receivers on the outside, they win their matchups also. And then with Zach Ertz coming into play, it's like, come on. I mean,
that's actually an upgrade over Max Williams, isn't it? As much as people like Max, I think that's a huge upgrade, and it's only
pass catching wise for sure. Even though Max has had his time in the sun, he's one of the better blocking tight ends in football. He's served his purpose immeasurably, and not only as a leader but also on the field. But I mean, Zach Ertz he's sprinkles on the Sunday when you don't really need anything else offensively. And then you just add him, you're like, oh no, there's another weapon. And I am of the camp that all of these people on one-year deals need to be re-signed at the end of the season. Like, this is a run it back already. It doesn't matter. It's a run it James Conner, AJ Green, Ronnie Hudson already got his extension, JJ Watt's going to opt in or whatever the second year is, and Zach Ertz is unrestricted. Bring the kids back. Yeah. I mean, everything seems to be in its right place for the first time in maybe all of these players' careers, where they're playing their role, they don't have to be the number one, and they can just all ball out together.
This kind of seems like the formula that Tampa Bay had coming into this season. Of course, the big variable in all of that is winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Winning the Super Bowl.
Tom Brady's pretty good.
Winning the Super Bowl on your own field is nice, and the Cardinals should have an opportunity to do that. Is that next year?
I think. I need to double check. There was so much movement around with COVID and everything, and then there was a jump in front of the line. I don't even remember.
All right, so the Cardinals 6-0. That's that's more than a third of the season, more than a quarter of it, obviously. So I think that it's pretty real. When you see first of all, the most absurd thing that I saw was you were just talking about tight ends. Larry Fitzgerald is not coming back. Larry Fitzgerald is especially not coming back to play tight end in today's National Football League at the age of 37?
38, 37, whatever.
Yeah, so that's one of the more absurd takes. But the Cardinals winning the Super Bowl, bringing everybody back, it looks great, but they're not the only good team in the NFC. There are 4 5-1 teams. There's a 5-1 team in each division, including the NFC West, where it's the Rams right behind the Cardinals. And, oh, by the way, who gave them that one? Of course, the Arizona Cardinals. But when you look at Dallas, when you look at Green Bay, when you look at Tampa, and you look at the Rams, and the Cardinals should be at least in a mathematical poll where we don't take anybody's feelings or marketability into place. The Cardinals should be the number one rated team in the NFC just because of that zero. It's like Mercury Morris said. It ain't about the 17, it's about the O. And the Cardinals still have that O, and I don't think it's a lot like Harbaugh's first year in San Francisco, where you're like, okay, maybe they're just beating up a weak NFC West. I think this is coming off the year that the Sea Chickens were 7-9, and you you look at the Cardinals, and I think that they are head-to-head a better team than everybody behind them. But, the 28th, when they play the Packers, if that game's at Lambeau, it's you look at it as a different game, despite the fact that Arizona went into Cleveland and took care of business. And they've taken care of business everywhere that they've gone. But the advantage of the Packers coming in, I don't see people that aren't buying in right now, buying into a home win over the Packers, which would make them 8-0.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to say that they're going to be 7-0 because they're not.
Yeah, with Houston, I mean, just take care of business. The thing that's interesting, just like the excuse coming out of LA was it was a letdown game after they beat Tampa Bay the week before. And what you're going to hear from Packers pundits is they play Kansas City the week after. So they have the long week off. They play Kansas City in Arrowhead in week 9. So if the Cardinals beat Green Bay on Thursday Night Football, it's like, oh, they were looking ahead towards Kansas City. So, I mean, there's going to be that built-in excuse. Now, having said that, the Cardinals match up very well against Green Bay for a couple reasons. One, Aaron Rodgers doesn't like being touched. He's a little baby. Doesn't like being touched. He also doesn't like playing on the road with big lights around. Especially, not like at San Francisco. At San Francisco, how he does in big lights. And they beat him this year, right? He beat him this year, right? But it was close. I can't remember. It doesn't even matter. Aaron Rodgers...
Well, they haven't lost since they lost to the Saints in week 1.
Oh, that's right. Okay, right. Fair enough. He doesn't like J.J. Watt. I can tell you that. Chandler Jones, hopefully if he's healthy in the next 2 weeks, come back. They're without Jair Alexander. You can bracket Devontae Adams. Their run defense we saw last week can be good when it needs to be against Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. So I feel like that's a win. And if they win, just look at this way. They win week 8, okay? Then they have, in some order, because I remember they have the 49ers, the Seahawks, Carolina, Chicago, and one other team. I mean, they could legitimately, I think they play the Rams in week 14, I think, and they could legitimately be 12-1 going into week 14.
I'm glad that you're counting on that one. I don't think that they're 17-0.
No, stop. No. And the team I have them losing to, if they beat Green Bay, the team I have them losing to is Chicago at Soldier Field. Early morning, it's going to be cold. It's a weird game. Khalil Mack, who the hell knows? That defense is going to be better then. David Montgomery will be back. Justin Fields will be into his own a little bit. The Cardinals won by 7 points against a quarterback who has no business being in the NFL right now, starting a game with Trey Lance. He has no business. It's not time yet, especially not knowing he was going to start until 5 days before that when Jimmy Garoppolo went out. That's the loss. I have Chicago. It's a weird one. There's always a weird one.
It is. I mean, when Miami famously beat the Bears on Monday Night Football back in '85, they were the best team in the AFC. They got upset in the AFC Championship by the wild card Patriots, who were the first team to reach the Super Bowl by winning all of their games on the road, including the wild card. So that year it was a legitimate contender that didn't get an opportunity at a rematch in the Super Bowl, which might chap some Bears fans' hides. But you got a Super Bowl. Cardinals fans don't. Browns fans don't either.
No, they don't.
So.
No, they don't. But, I mean, they could also lose to San Francisco the next time they play in the Seattle if Russell Wilson's back. It's the NFL.
What do you think the chances of him coming back are?
He'll be back. Unless they want to trade. Like, I am of the camp with the Seahawks that if they don't make the playoffs this year, it's fire sale central. Jamal Adams gone. I think Carlos Dolan only signed a 1-year deal. They get rid of everybody except for the receivers. Russell Wilson, they don't have any first-round picks because they traded him for Jamal Adams. So it's like a draft day. You remember the movie Draft Day? I've watched it too many times where they'll just trade Russell Wilson, get those draft picks back, plus a quarterback, Zach Wilson or Teddy Bridgewater, whoever, Baker Mayfield, and they get 2 first-round picks back, and you start over. And Russell Wilson and his contract go bye-bye. He doesn't want to be there anyways.
Where does he go next?
It depends on where Aaron Rodgers goes, but I truly believe, and this is, I think Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson ends up in Cleveland. Like, truly, they are a B+. Baker Mayfield's a B quarterback. I don't knock him. He's a great leader. He's tough as nails.
He's very inconsistent. I think that his highest of highs, he could beat any team on any given day, but his lowest of lows, and quite frankly, we've seen it over the last couple of years.
But I mean, you look at let's look at the people in his division, not named Joe Burrow. Ben Roethlisberger, how does he do without a run game? Not great. How does Lamar Jackson do without a run game? Non-existent. Yet. So it's not like he's
J.K.
the only...
Dobbins back and everything.
Right,
yeah,
but
everything
but without a run game, he's had to, like, what Lamar Jackson's probably the MVP this year. He's not going to win it because he already won one, but what he's doing is magical. It really, because he couldn't throw the ball like this before. So it's just, he's learning, he's growing, but it's not an original story that a quarterback can't win without a run game. So that's all I'm saying. But I think one of them would be the perfect spot would be Cleveland, because they have draft picks, they have everything else they just need a quarterback.
What about the weapons in Pittsburgh? Doesn't that seem tempting to Aaron Rodgers?
Potentially, yeah, but their offensive line's terrible, and he doesn't like getting hit. He doesn't like getting, like, he would go to Denver because of the offense, just like Peyton Manning went, because he was here in Arizona checking it out. Offensive line was better in Denver. He's going to go where the offensive line is. Tennessee, it could get weird. Wherever there's a good offensive line, that's where Aaron Rodgers will want to go. He can work with the weapons anywhere. But yeah.
Well, Tennessee is only good with Taylor Lewan on the field.
That's true.
If he doesn't play, they could lose to a half-ass team like the Arizona Cardinals. I don't know if you saw that out there, but just crazy shit out there in the media, and I like to respond to it. What else did I want to talk to you about? How about we talk a little Phoenix Suns?
Sure.
I watched the Milwaukee Bucks a little earlier tonight get their rings, and I've never watched the ring ceremony. In fact, I was running late for Game 1 of the 2016 World Series when the Cavaliers got the one and only ring that would be offered to any team, at least thus far, in my lifetime, and for people that are 29 years older than me as well, because Cleveland's one of those cities like Phoenix. Now, my story with Phoenix is a little bit different. I moved here September 16, 01, so I got the 9/11 very immediately in the rear view. And in front of me, I've got this tremendous, heartfelt World Series between the Diamondbacks and the Yankees.
Yeah.
And the first game that I ever saw was actually Albert Pujols' first playoff game. It was Game 1 between the Cards and D-backs. Matt Morris against Curt Schilling. It was a 1-0 game. Game baseball purists love. Game that people that say that baseball is extremely boring like to point out is Exhibit A. But I couldn't just jump on that bandwagon. I've been here 6 weeks. I couldn't say we won the World Series, even though I got the rep the next day. It's got Randy Johnson coming out of the dugout and it says champs, world champs, all above the fold, and a little bit of the photo above the fold. But I don't think that this town was ready for a World Series from the baseball team. I think that they've been holding their breath waiting for the Suns, and then post-Sun Devil Stadium era, because everything from 88 to 05 I'm going to write off with the Cardinals. Is nobody cares. The home games are blacked out. Nobody wants to watch the road games because they want to watch the actual game of the week. But this town is starving for a parade past 2001. I thought we might steal one in 2012 with the Yotes. I know that there's been a lot of near misses from the Suns, but considering the purgatory that they were in, even when Steve Nash was here and they were good and they couldn't get much past the 8th spot or getting that 13th or 14th lottery pick. Everything changes when the lottery balls come in their favor and they land DeAndre Ayton. It gave Devin Booker something else to work with. And I think that they built such a team with the young core here in Phoenix. Credit to James Jones, credit to Monty Williams since he took over. But I think the Suns team is close. I know that last year was a great window and they might not have the same opportunities this year, but Game 1 of 82 against the Denver Nuggets on Wednesday, and it's the quest to defend the West, but is it perhaps the quest for something more, hopefully? Yeah,
I mean, the whole DeAndre Ayton thing's been interesting.
When you were talking about the bag earlier, I didn't want to kick out of the Cardinals again.
No, it's been riveting because giving Landry Shamet a contract extension right when he got traded to the Suns, and then Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is more of the stencil of the NBA player now.
Plays all 5 positions, pretty much. Can defend all 5. Anyway.
Great defense. He's an integral part of the team, whatever. DeAndre Ayton, he's been fine, okay? Him getting drafted before Luka Doncic and Trae Young wasn't his fault, okay? It wasn't his fault. And you went Greg Oden over Kevin Durant, and that's fine. I'm not directly comparing the two, but you went need with talent over anything else. Up until the trade for Chris Paul, he didn't deserve a max contract. right? I mean, that's pretty obvious that he didn't deserve a max contract. Maybe that rookie extension, give him an extra $50 million like what Mikal Bridges got. Maybe give him that, but you're not giving him $200 million. Okay, you're not giving him $100 million. Chris Paul comes in. Chris Paul is a center career maker. That's what he's always done. It was David West and Tyson Chandler. It was DeAndre Jordan and Blake Griffin with the Clippers, and then it was all the young bucks everywhere else. Clint Capella got a huge contract. He went to Atlanta. Chris
Adams.
Paul. Yeah,
Steven Adams was kind of made with Westbrook before, but
right.
He didn't do poorly.
But he's also not that much of an offensive player. But yeah, he maximized what he could out of Steven Adams when he was there in OKC. So it's a double-edged sword. Chris Paul's going to be here until he retires, most likely. Either that or it's going to be 2 years and he's going to get traded to play in Charlotte, wherever he wants for his last year of his deal. That leaves 3 years after that with DeAndre Ayton if you give him a 5-year max deal without his guiding light of a point guard that the Suns have never had since he's been here. Not even close, obviously.
And as much as everybody loves Campaign, he's not going to be the guy.
No, he's not, because he's really a scoring guy first. He's a shooter first. I personally wouldn't give him the money. Personally. And the reason why is because, and it's so unfair because it's not him, Karl Anthony Towns has been a losing player in perpetuity with Minnesota. And Minnesota's not that far off from the Suns' history. Like, sure, the Suns have had better years, mid-2000s with Steve Nash and everything, absolutely. They got a gift with Mark Cuban letting him walk to come back to Phoenix. Minnesota's had good years, KG, etc., but Karl Anthony Towns is a 27, 12, and 5 machine, and it means nothing.
Kevin Love was 30 and 20 there.
Right.
And, when he got belittled into the role that LeBron put him in Cleveland, he's a different player.
So Karl Anthony Towns got paid all the money, and it hasn't equated to wins. Sure, they haven't had the point guard, they haven't had Devin Booker. I get the differences between Minnesota's team and the Suns. But the fact remains that if you pay a big man a lot of money, you're not going to win a championship. That's a blanket statement that is just true. It's not DeAndre Ayton. It's like the movie Rockstar. It doesn't matter who the lead singer is of the band. There's always going to be somebody else coming up and taking the role, and it's going to be the same thing until the NBA reverts back to what it was 20 years ago, which it will at some point because everything reverts. When Steph retires, when Harden retires, it's going to be, oh man, I can shoot 25 feet closer to the basket. It's 1 point less. Oh my God, Daryl Morey wasn't right. What a shocker. Centers will be more important. But now I would give him 3-year, $120 million and say, take it or leave it, kid.
Would you say that? Would you say that if Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played in today's NBA?
It's so different. He would have been like a second-round pick. The dude's 7th.
He's Anthony Tolliver, basically. You're saying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is Channing Frye.
Yeah, well, I mean, before Channing Frye learned how to shoot threes. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You mean the time he was with the Suns and he didn't know how to shoot threes yet?
Yeah, wasn't that it? Because he wasn't a shooter. He wasn't a three-point shooter in college, right?
No.
Yeah, and then he became. Oh, that's right. When he went to Cleveland, that's all he did. That's right. I don't think $200 million and he's young and he's good. He's got a great personality. Like, this is not a direct conversation about DeAndre Ayton, which is really unfortunate. His numbers pale in comparison to Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns got paid, and it's not fair to compare them, but that's just where we're at. There are very few guys in the NBA. Clint Capella got a lot of money, and his role is now play defense and catch alley-oops to Trae Young, which is great. He's good at it. Is it worth $150 million? Probably not.
See, I think it's kind of one of those pass-fail things. I think it's a little bit like Kirk Cousins being the highest-paid quarterback in the NFL because you either take the guy that you have to work with, and I know it's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison, but you take the guy that you have to work with, or you start 100% from scratch. And how long does Chris Paul stick around if Ayton walks after this season? I know that's a question anyway.
Well, I mean, I think what you look at here is you're James Jones, and people that don't think for themselves blows my mind. Well, it's what the market share. Then correct the market. Like, baseball was so close to correcting the market, and then it was Manny Machado 300, 330, and then Mike Trout 400. Bing, bang, boom. At the end of free agency, right before the season was about to start, they almost got there to where it was like JD Martinez 125 was around the cap of what big name players we're going to get, and then Machado, Harper, Mike Trout were further behind than where we were to begin with.
On behalf of Phoenix, I want to say you're welcome, Boston, for JD Martinez. And
son of a bit, like you couldn't give him 120. You couldn't give him and Paul Goldschmidt 250 combined. Couldn't do it. Anyways,
who's committed to winning in this town? Is it just the Cardinals, or is Robert Sarver actually committed to winning?
The Suns are now, but this is where it's just because somebody gets paid a lot doesn't mean they're going to equate to wins. And DeAndre Ayton, if I were the Suns, I would look for a team that wants to give him $200 million and do a sign and trade for a, I don't know, like a Rashawn Holmesy kind of guy, and then a stud, and everybody wins. Not draft picks. You're beyond that. You're beyond that at this point. You don't need to get younger. They're already one of the youngest teams. Chris Paul obviously tips the scale, but they're all young. Jay Crowder's a little bit older. Everybody else, they're babies. Look for a team that would yearn for a DeAndre Ayton type. Get a Rashawn Holmes rock star replacement, kind of, who's 10-10, and then just get a stud and save the money personally.
So are you talking about pairing him with Halliburton up in Sacramento?
Well, I mean, I guess you could. I mean, you look at like Buddy Hield and a big guy for DeAndre Ayton, so you don't have to pay him. Could be worse. Now, Phoenix fans love DeAndre Ayton.
Maybe C.J. McCollum comes back?
Something like that, even though they have too many big guys. They're like, I would take Enes Kanter and C.J. McCollum for DeAndre Ayton. Yes. Or who's the other guy? Yusuf Nurkic. Yusuf Nurkic is a perfect example. Yusuf Nurkic and C.J. McCollum for DeAndre Ayton, 100%. Well, and the reason why, again, he's a good kid. This is not about him. He's 23 years old. He's going to get better. He ain't worth $200 million. And Suns fans, all they remember is they made it to the finals. He's got to be worth it. I love him.
He made the value-oop.
Yeah, which was fantastic.
Which was
great.
And he was a great story. You know, the whole thing with his, the way that his game turned around, how he turned around as a man after he became a father.
100%.
I think it's all awesome.
But it's business.
It is.
He's a great story. And if they sign him to $200 million, it could be a lot worse with who you give $200 million to. But the point is, do you want to be happy with 55 wins, 2 playoff wins, and lose the Western Conference Finals a bunch, or do you want to win a championship? And I don't think you can win a championship with DeAndre Ayton. It sucks. But just because they made it to the finals once, and the only time, and I know Suns fan, like, I'm sorry, it's true. This is a true statement. The only fully healthy team they played was in the finals, and they lost. And they were up 2-0. So just don't think about last year when you're looking towards the future, because everything's going to change for every team moving forward. And if you're going to live in the past, it's like you're going to Uncle Rico it. You know, you're going to be like, oh, cool, when I was in high school, I could throw a football over that mountain. Good for you. That's not now.
I think Groundhog Day is a perfect example. Yeah,
sure.
It goes
we can
back.
Sonny and share it. That's fine.
What's that?
We can Sonny and share it. Yeah, the song.
Yeah. I mean, you can Sonny and share it, but he tries harder with the snowball fight towards the end of the movie.
Okay.
See, I didn't see Rockstar, so I was thinking like Almost Famous, where Billy Crudup was kind of the star from the band.
No. Rockstar it's a Mark Wahlberg movie. He's a super fan of this rock group. He goes to see them when they're younger. He dresses up like the lead singer. He's in the front row. He knows all the songs. He sings the songs. One day, one show, in the middle of the set, the lead singer of the band looks at Mark Wahlberg and says, "Get up here." Mark Wahlberg takes over as the lead singer of the band, and that lead singer just takes off because he's done being the lead singer. So he lives this life, and then at the end of the movie, he looks down, there's somebody that was just like him in the front row, and he's like, "Get up here." He takes over, and that's it. So that's kind of what I look at it as with big men. It doesn't matter who it is, it's always going to be something like that until it reverts back to big man basketball, which it slowly but surely is, but it's still going to take a few more years before they're actually a focal point of the offense.
Yeah, you can't repeat the same formulas because teams advance, everything evolves. Like Golden State, they win the championship in Cleveland in 6 games in 2015, and every night that they were in Cleveland, because Cleveland's got a great food scene, by the way, but every night they're in Cleveland, they eat at Morton's because that's what they know, and it was good luck for them in 2015. So they tried to replicate it in 2016, and they had they didn't win Game 3 until they started winning in 5 and 4 on the back end after Kyrie Irving kind of checked out there, but they kept doing the Morton's thing, and it didn't work for them. They lost Game 5 in Cleveland after eating at Morton's, and they stopped being undefeated in Cleveland when they ate at Morton's. And it's just like, you can't keep living the same event over and over again. You got to create a new event. And I think that, you go back to the Cowboys, you go back to Michael's Bulls, a lot of them will tell you, we had to do something different every year. We had to change. We couldn't just, go at you. Different with the Lakers, because they just, storm Shaquille O'Neal at you, and Kobe Bryant would go to the line 54 times a game. Yeah. But, especially in football, because it's such a dynamic game, and coaches change and schemes change, and you see adjustments from the first half to the second half, and that's what's been impressive about the Cardinals, because I thought they lost that Jacksonville game, especially after the stupidity of sending Matt Prater out there for a 68-yard field goal in humid North Florida. It made no sense. I was like, this is stupid. They will be fortunate not to have this returned all the way for a touchdown, because I got Auburn, Alabama in the back of my mind, and surely this Agnew guy from Jacksonville is not going to live in the infamy of winning the Iron Bowl and knocking Alabama out of the national championship. But some dire moments for the Cardinals. They give up the joy of the Hail Mary from DeAndre Hopkins against the Bills a year ago, and not many teams have beaten the Bills since that game. I think the Chiefs and the two losses that they've gotten this year, but you've lived on the other end of it. Granted, when you're up 30-7, you can absorb a last minute touchdown to stay up by 16 as long as you play a good second half. And I think that the Cardinals have played fantastic second halves all year, even when when it doesn't show on the scoreboard, it passes the eyeball test.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and one of the biggest things, like with Cleveland, if it weren't for that Hail Mary, they had shut out Cleveland from 5 minutes in the second quarter on. And there was a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, and they shut them out in the second half. Obviously, with Kareem Hunt going down, the whole thing, it was a little bit, there was a little bit less talent on the field. But, I mean, it's a lot of it, and I've been pounding the table, and this is my example I always use. Winning teams have a LeGarrette Blount to run the ball in the fourth quarter when you need him to. And LeGarrette Blount was a vision for the Patriots for years, where he's like, okay, they're up 10 points going in the fourth quarter, they have the ball. He's getting the ball 15 times. 4 yards, bleed it down to 1 second. 5 yards, bleed it down to 1 second. First down. And before you know it, there's 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The team down 10 doesn't have the ball yet, and New England's kicking a 38-yard field goal with 6 minutes left, and the game's over. They have that with James Conner. And finally, a team is realizing, don't Arian Foster, your running back, and give him the ball 45 times a game. Figure out a different way to do it. Christian McCaffrey, hurt. Nick Chubb, 2 years in a row now, hurt. Kareem Hunt has had injury concerns over his career. I mean, you can't give one running back. Derrick Henry, hopefully he is just an absolute Adonis like we've seen, where it doesn't matter. He's impervious to anything. But he had injury concerns early on, and he didn't get a lot of run with DeMarco Murray there when he was younger. But James Conner, at like 14 yards, 14 carries a game, give him 9 of them in the fourth quarter, he can bleed the hell out of that clock. We saw it in Cleveland.
Yeah.
So that's why the fourth quarter is so important when you can run the ball, because that is the biggest gut punch, just spear to the chest of your opponent when they're down 9 points. They can't get the ball back because all they're doing is running all over them and just bleeding the clock.
Yeah, I used to play NFL Blitz back in the day, and
not a lot of running in that game.
There's not a lot of running in that game, but if you didn't score, on your first possession of the fourth, I mean, it was like arena football. It was all about taking advantage of possessions and scoring versus field position. But if you missed a score and you were going to have an odd number of possessions, you lost the game at the beginning of the third quarter because they could just bleed. They could run the ball or throw short passes and bleed the clock dry. One other thing that I thought of when you were talking about how you can't have that single running back be your prime commodity in the backfield is fantasy football owners have to just despise the running back by committee, and it's not really a novelty anymore. It seems like every team has to do it.
It's good business.
It is.
I mean, you need, like, if you can get, like, what they did with Kareem Hunt, the fact that they re-signed Kareem Hunt, that he decided to stay there, he could have been a number one back in 22 teams out of 32, 20, 18, whatever.
I think that might be a little bit flawed. And I grew up in Willoughby, Ohio. I went to the same damn high school that he did.
Okay.
So I'm a fan, even when he played for the Chiefs. He's got no field vision. He's got all the physical ability in the world, but the juxtaposition between him and Nick Chubb the way that Chubb sees the field, it's like night and day. And maybe the Browns need that type of punch. But the way that Hunt played in that playoff game against the Steelers, so many of those Browns have hearts of lions, which is all the fans care about. And that's why here we attach ourselves to guys like Andy Isabella, because they're a good story. And I like I like where you're at with it. You didn't say it this way, but fuck everybody's feelings and just play the game. Play the game and put your best team out there on the field.
Yeah. I mean, luckily the Cardinals, they figured out where some players should be on the practice squad and some should be starting on Sundays, and they figured out the right elixir, it seems like, at least through 6 weeks.
That's Alex Clancy, locked on Cardinals daily?
Yeah.
Daily with Bo Brock on wherever you get your podcast, really. Anything more you want to say before we get out of here, Alex?
YouTube also, but no, Cardinals, man. Like, Thursday night's going to be really fun, a week from Thursday.
Oh, yeah, that Packers game.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it.
I wanted to go. I try to go to a Cardinals game every year. Even though I'm a Browns fan, I'm aware of what's going on around here. I like being able to talk to clients on the business side of what I do, and it helps to know about the local team because they don't give a shit about the Browns.
Yeah, for sure. Fair enough.
All right. Alex Clancy, thanks so much for joining
Thanks for having me, man.
This has been Jeff Rich live from Phoenix on Central City Radio. Check us out on centralcityradio.com, our YouTube channel, and download the Central City app wherever you get your mobile apps. Have a great week, everyone. Hey, what's up, Phoenix? I'm Jeff Rich from Central City Radio Sports. Check out my show, Jeff Rich, live from Phoenix, where we take an unabridged look at the sports world with the latest from the Valley and around the country. We discuss the Suns, Cardinals, Sun Devils, Yotes, and D-backs with the best guests from local print, talk, and digital media. Find Jeff Rich live from Phoenix on CentralCityRadio.com and the Central City Radio app.
This program is brought to you by the Genesis Communications Network, a world leader in talk radio since 1998.